It's the last day of the offsite. The meetings were productive, the energy was contagious, exactly what the team needed. The CEO pulls you aside to say, "Thank you, this was next level." And you smile because it felt that way to you too. You found the secret to delegating the logistics so you could focus on shaping your team's experience. You used offsite. They handled the venues, the negotiations, the logistics, and together you created an experience that will move your business forward. Sound too good to be true? It's actually within reach, and it can even save you money. See how at leaderassistant.com/offsite.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and this is episode 384. I'm excited to be joined by Beth Portesi. Beth was actually on the show in episode 269 a while back, but lots has changed, for her career and her journey, but also in the world overall, especially in the AI world. And so today we're going to talk all about vibe coding, what the heck is vibe coding, and what does it mean for us as executive assistants. So Beth, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And for those who haven't heard the episode, again, it's episode 269. You can go back and listen to that at leaderassistant.com/269. But we're going to pretend that those listening have not heard that, and we're going to do a kind of a brief bio. So tell us what part of the world you live in and what you like to do when you're not working.
Sure. Yeah. So I live in Southern Oregon. Outside of work, I'd say my biggest passion is hanging out with my 2-year-old, which is actually new since the last episode. So she just turned 2. So hanging out with my 2-year-old, my family, and we have a market garden. So we grow and sell produce at a local farmer's market. So that's our biggest passion. Yeah, outside of work.
Nice. What's the top seller? What's your go-to as far as what you can grow well and sell well?
Yeah, our top seller, we are known for our greens, and our lettuce mix is like the cream of the crop for us. Everybody loves it. It lasts a long time. We always get people telling us how long it lasts in their fridge. So we have our bagged mixed greens that everyone loves.
Nice. Love it. We had we don't go all out or anything. We kind of live in a little bit more of a urban setting, but we have a strawberry garden that has done really well for a few years. And we couldn't grow tomatoes for some reason. We couldn't grow a couple other things, but strawberries went really well. But we had last year, I think we had 3 or 4 big bowls of strawberries across a week. And then we had kind of smaller bowls for another week or so. And they were just delicious. But then this year was a little bit of I think there was a fungus that kind of tore into some of it and some animal issues. And so we didn't quite get the harvest that we were hoping for, but it's still awesome to grow something in your own yard with your own hands and then enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Totally agree. And if you're at like year 4 for strawberries, it might be time to rip them out and replant because they kind of die down after a few years.
Yeah, we did. We have like 3 beds, I guess, and one of them's on like year 2 and one's on year 3. And then I think one we ripped out. So
look at you, proper succession.
Yeah, we're trying. So awesome. Well, that's great. Again, super glad to have you back on the show. Tell us a little bit about what's changed in your career and your role. I know you recently had a role change. So tell us a little bit about, give us a high level of your assistant journey and then where you're at now.
Yeah, sure. So I was an executive assistant for 12 years. And Jeremy, I genuinely thought I was going to retire as an EA, like never had any interest in like the chief of staff path or anything. I loved my job, wanted to be an EA till the end of time. So the fact that I'm sitting here today and that's not my job title definitely took me by surprise. In the last year, I went from someone who was curious about AI to an AI enthusiast and now helping lead our AI transformation program at the company I work at called Fivetran. So I went from being a lead executive assistant there to now being the AI enablement and program lead.
Love it. So AI enablement and program lead, what does that mean day to day so far?
Sure. So I think we'll actually be changing this title because it's a brand new department for our company, a brand new team initiative. It's all brand new, so we're still figuring out as well. But essentially, it's the AI operations and transformation. Like, if we were to build the company from the ground up using AI, what does that look like? So it's working with every department and every team on defining their outcomes with AI and how we can help them get there. So there's a lot of different facets of this, but yeah, so helping the business drive the AI outcomes and additionally enabling individuals and our sellers as well with AI.
Awesome. And when you say, enabling them with AI, what specific AI tools are you referring to? Is it kind of anything and everything? Is it just a high level?
Yeah, our approach, we have an approach at Fivetrain where we have access to a lot of different tools. We don't have vendor lock-in per se. So we have, ChatGPT and access to the open AI tools like Codex. We use Claude. We use Gemini. But we recently rolled out our Claude enterprise licenses. So my focus was on operationally getting that assigned to everyone, and then how do we get them started? If this is a tool they're seeing for the first time, where do they start? So running live enablement and working sessions to walk them through that process.
Awesome. So then how did you personally get started down the AI path?
Yeah, so last year I was at my kind of wit's end with my to-do list and Slack, and I couldn't really find an easy way to direct my action items from Slack into my Google Sheets to-do list. And I just started using Claude, and it's an AI tool similar to ChatGPT. And I went to Claude and I said, "How can I do this?" And it gave me a couple options. One of them was using a tool like Zapier, but using a tool like Zapier requires permissions from the IT department. And in order to get approval, I would have had to go down this like long and grueling procurement process. So I was really just trying to get creative and find my way around this process because I wanted to get this done. I wanted to automate this process of getting things on my to-do list. But then Claude offered another option, which was said, I can write you some code and you can paste it in your computer and run this automation. And I had no idea. It gave me like a huge block of code. I'd never seen something like this, other than like coding my MySpace page back in 2007. So it was definitely unfamiliar territory. And there's something on your computer called a terminal, and it wanted me to paste a bunch of technical jargon into this terminal. And then Claude walked me through it step by step, like, take this code, paste it here, and this whole process, and voila, it actually worked. I eventually got to a point where I would add an emoji to a Slack message, and that Slack message got added to my to-do list. So I would say getting started for me, this was like my light bulb moment of going beyond just using a tool like ChatGPT or Claude for refining communications to actually producing an automation that I could use day to day. And I kind of felt like I had a super genius parked in a van outside my house, like giving me a play-by-play of all the things I needed to do. Because I didn't have the skills and capability to do all of these like engineering or developer level tasks. Yeah, so that was it for me.
Wow. Yeah, so the I've kind of had a similar experience where I was like, man, I'm tired of doing this manually. There's got to be a way. And these tools came out, and I was like, oh, let me try. I think I tried Cursor, I tried Copilot, or I tried, and then Claude. And I was like, I'm just going to sign up for all of these at once and just try them all and see which one makes more sense to me and see which one actually does good work when I tell it what I want it to do, right? And actually interacts with the projects that I was working on in ways that were helpful. and eventually landed on Claude Code was just most user friendly for me personally. Um, excuse me, but I definitely felt that same excitement and energy of like, oh, okay, like I don't know like you said, I don't know what terminal is. In fact, I've even gone, most of the stuff I've been working on, I'm like, I don't want to use terminal. And I'm like, tell me how to do this without using terminal. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we can do it this way, or, and, um, so anyway, it's been pretty exciting. So there's this term that has been coined, I guess, for this whole process called vibe coding. And so yeah, just tell us a little bit about if somebody's read the title of this episode, vibe coding for executive assistants, they're like, what the heck is vibe coding?
Yeah, vibe coding is describing what you want in plain language and letting AI handle the technical part. So whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, like say you want to build, an app for an offsite you have coming up, you probably don't have the technical skills to develop this code that an engineer or developer would. But if you can describe what you want, a tool like Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini can give you the code and handle the technical part of executing to something of that degree. And I use the metaphor of a pool when thinking about using AI. So most people start on the steps, right? It's usually something like ChatGPT for communication or research or back and forth chat style. Then as you come off the steps and get a little bit into the shallow section, maybe you start using AI to draft documents or make a spreadsheet pretty or do a presentation. And as you get towards the middle of the pool, which is a little bit what I was talking about with my Slack and to-do list example, that's using automations, like maybe something in the terminal or using tools like Google Apps Script or Lovable or Zapier. And if you've never heard of those, like don't worry about it. I'm just trying to say that the middle of the pool is where you start to automate your existing workflows. And then in the deep end, which is my absolute favorite place, this is where a lot of the magic happens, kind of what you're talking about, Jeremy, too, with your examples. This is using tools like Claude Code or Codex. These are coding tools where you can actually start to build real tangible things. So yeah, that's a vibe coding. And I went down this same rabbit hole last year. I was staying up late, waking up early. I was building all kinds of things. I felt like I had magic. And over the Christmas and New Year's holiday break, I decided that everybody needed to know about this. And I wanted to share this magic with anyone who wanted it for themselves. So I vibe coded a website with a tool called Lovable, and I launched what I call vibe coding for executive assistants or vibe coding for EAs. I chose a date 2 weeks later to run my first working session, and I wanted to start in that shallow section of the pool, something simple like documents and spreadsheets from there, and then gradually get more technical. So that's when I launched vibe coding for executive assistants to walk them through exactly what this is and how to use these tools to create things.
Awesome. So those listening who have not even signed up for Claude or don't even know what vibe coding is or haven't gotten started yet, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say that first is some people get a kind of paralysis of what they can do. Like, cool, I have what I hear is a super powerful tool at my fingertips, but where do I even start? Or what can I do differently? And I'm not going to suggest that you sit down and evaluate all of your most repetitive processes and like go through a process of elimination and thoughtfully decide. It's more like, I know that right now you have a to-do list and I know there's a lot of things on it, right? That probably more things you can do in a day, whether it's for personal things or work things. Like, what are 3 things on your to-do list right now? Okay, now that you know those 3 things, open Claude and say, these are the 3 things on my to-do list. Help me do them. And I would say that Claude is your best thought partner on what it can do to help you. And from there, I just say every single thing that comes across your desk, plug it into Claude and see how it can help. In my sessions, when I demo something I've built, again, say like an offsite app for attendees to use, if they are planning an offsite, people will say, well, what if I want to include like a packing list feature? Can it do that? Or what if I want to offer a carpool feature? Can it do that? And my answer is yes. Like if you can dream it, Claude or Codex can build it. So I'd say number 1 is don't get stuck in a paralysis of where to start. I would say just get started. And the next is you don't have to be what people call a prompt engineer. You don't have to craft these perfect prompts to be effective with AI. I've seen posts on social media or LinkedIn like, here are the 100 best prompts to use with Claude for, financial planning or whatever it is. And I'm an executor, so when I'm getting something done, I'm usually not going to go dig up something I bookmarked about prompts. So instead, I just start typing or dictating. And I call this method lazy girl prompting. I don't even fix my typos. I do a brain dump. And the one thing I say at the end is, ask me questions before starting. That way it can fill in any missing gaps, maybe while I did that brain dump. So the second there is you don't need to be a prompt engineer, just get it out and get started. Third, if you're building something complex, you have a really grand idea and you do that dictation or, just start typing, you can also delegate the prompting itself back to Claude. You can literally say, help me write a prompt for Claude, and then give it your entire brain dump. There is an amazing app called Whisperflow. You can download it on your computer. It gives you the ability to dictate anywhere you can type. So you just put your mouse, you click into a Slack message or your AI tool or an email, and it will dictate and format your dictation. So I highly recommend that because you can usually talk a lot faster than you can type. So it's very efficient. A couple more things is when people get started, I sometimes see some reactions, maybe some like somewhat negative reactions, like if they've used AI once or twice. And one is maybe they tried doing something for the first time and they say, with the amount of time it took me to do that, I could have just done it myself. And I'd say that when you're learning anything for the first time, there's an inevitable learning curve. So give yourself and the tool grace, because once you become proficient with it and the processes, that it's helping you become more efficient overall. So maybe the first time you do it, it's not that fast, but the next time and the next time after that, as you get more familiar with these tools, it really can help you become more efficient. Last is the principle of human in the loop. So AI does have the tendency to hallucinate. It's not perfect. So if you ask it for metrics or stats or you're doing research, there's a chance it can hallucinate. So you are still the human in the loop to check its work. It's like if you have an intern completing tasks on your behalf and these are going to, get escalated to management, you probably want to check work before, sending it off. So yeah, the human in the loop principle is still really important.
Love it. Yeah, I do that a lot too, where I'm like, all right, the AI is doing a bunch of the work and the grunt work, if you will, for me, but then I still got to check it, right? I still got to trust but verify.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, obviously there's so many different tools out there. It seems like every day there's a new thread or post on LinkedIn about some new AI tool or AI company that just raised a bunch of money and does this and does that. For assistance specifically, what are your thoughts on choosing the right tool?
Yeah, sure. And actually, I'd say this isn't just assistant specific. I would say this is pretty much everyone in the workforce because we're all being bombarded with these AI tools and options. But Bruce Lee has a quote and he says, be like water, my friend. And he means that you have to be fluid and adaptable. And so that's the approach I like to take with AI is that you have to be able to move between these tools because one day the capabilities of one tool may outpace or perform another. But why do you have to be adaptable? Like why would it make sense to have more than one tool? Because you can think about it like this. If you're a company that builds houses, and your company is using manual screwdrivers to build the house, and the other company is using a power drill with like all the attachments, who's going to be more successful? So the moment that power drill is available to you, you need to have it in your tool belt. So that's when you need to have the flexibility and adaptability to when a new tool comes out, be able to use it and say, does this work for my use case? And be able to go back and forth between them. So although Claude is where I primarily work, I consider myself tool agnostic. I use tools like Codex by OpenAI, same company that created ChatGPT, for when I'm building something complex or I need to fix a bug in my code. And when people ask me, well, why should I use Claude instead of ChatGPT for something like vibe coding? My answer goes back to what you mentioned in the beginning, Jeremy, which is Claude is a really good starting point for non-technical people who are trying to do technical things. So ChatGPT, great for communications, chatting back and forth. But when you want to start like automating a process or building code or what they call agents for the first time, Claude is a really good place to start for that. And then you can always learn how to do it in Claude, and then it might make experiencing a tool like Codex a little bit easier since you already have some of that baseline experience.
Love it. I actually saw, speaking of agents, I saw this quote. Sam Woods on X said, automations follow rules, agents make judgments. And so a Zap, like Zapier, which you mentioned earlier, is an automation that does exactly what you told it to do every time, regardless of the context. An agent looks at the situation, reasons about it, decides what to do, and acts. And their point was basically you need both. You need automations, but you also need agents. And um, so yeah, I like what you how you described that with the Claude being good for non-technical people and being tool agnostic. And I've always tried to figure out, all right, what type of AI do I need to use? Do I need to use an automation for this task, or do I need an agent?
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know why, but even the word agent, like if you're not familiar with AI and like kind of deep in the world, sometimes I feel like a word like agent can be like, well, what do you mean by that?
Mhm.
And the way that I like to describe it is like, it's just, I think about it like an intern, right? If you have an intern, you're going to ask them to complete something on your behalf. I think of an agent as something that's just doing something on my behalf. So I can delegate work to them and then they can go do it. So I like to think about agents like as if you have your own intern. So yeah, just want to clear up that definition for anyone who feels confused by it. And a good example of this is when you're in a tool like Claude, they have a product called Claude Cowork. And this is where you can create agents or like scheduled tasks. It's really as simple as like an agent can be a scheduled task. Like every day, I want you to scrape my Slack and my email and my meeting notes and pull out all of the action items. Because, like you said, it understands its environment, it is able to process that information and say, what is an actual action item? And then add that to my to-do list. So that's like my scheduled task or my agent or my intern.
Nice. So let's get practical for a second before we wrap up. So what are what are some real world examples, regardless of which tool you use, which or what are some practical examples of using AI and applying AI and automation to your actual job?
Yeah. Yeah. I like to start small. So sure, you can create agents and automations and do all these wonderful things, but I like to start small, like on the steps or in the shallow section of the pool. So something like spreadsheets. Maybe you have a spreadsheet that you've used for planning an offsite or a leadership summit. My first recommendation would be drop in your existing spreadsheet into Claude and ask it to level it up. Maybe you want a dashboard, or maybe you want formulas so that all of the tabs on your spreadsheets roll up, to one dashboard and you don't have to write any of those formulas. So I was never a really good like Excel formula person. Sure, I could like work my way through it, but the really complex stuff, the ifs and the thens and the whats and the whatevers, not as good at that. So I love AI for that purpose of writing these formulas. Another, good example could be like my executive was on maternity leave. So I built her a dashboard for when she came back. It was just a simple doc dashboard. It had the weather of the two office locations she frequented the most. It had links to all of her one-on-one docs, an audit of all of her one-on-ones, who she was meeting with on what cadence. It had a section for key events like board meetings, strategy days, quarterly business reviews, when those were coming up. Had a snapshot of our team's PTO that was linked to our team's PTO Google Calendar. And this dashboard I created, I never had to update it manually. It just refreshed every day at 7 a.m. I told it what the important things were. Sure, if, something changed, like one of these one-on-ones, it would update that automatically. Or if, I wanted to remove an important doc, I could do that. But for the most part, it was fully live on its own. I never had to do anything myself. As I mentioned, I also use Claude Cowork for scheduling tasks. Again, that example of connecting it to things like Claude or my email and my meeting notes to grab context and capture follow-ups. So I set that to run every day at 5 p.m. Another thing that folks talk a lot about is skills. Skills are anything that AI is going to do repetitively that you want to add logic to. So, say, for example, you have your company's brand guidelines. I've saved my company's brand guidelines as a skill. And then anytime I'm creating a doc, a spreadsheet, a presentation, anything at all, I apply that skill and say, apply Fivetran branding. And it applies that to anything I'm creating. So yeah, so using it for these easy things like documents, spreadsheets, presentations, then getting into the skills and repetitive processes, and then on to what we call agents, where you can schedule them to do things for you. And further along is building apps and these more in-depth workflows.
Yeah. Love it. I'll share just a couple quick examples on my end. One was I had a PDF agenda of an event that my executive was attending, and on that PDF was a list of attendees, right? Their titles, their LinkedIn profiles, their email, their name, their company, all that stuff. But of course, it's a PDF, so to copy text off a PDF is always pretty messy and not the best formatting and all that. So I just uploaded the PDF into our enterprise Claude account, and I said, "Hey, can you create a CSV file or a table of all of the attendees with first name, company name, email, all the different columns, and make it so that I can upload it to Google Sheets really easily." And so anyway, it did it in like a minute or so, and I was like, "Oh, sweet!" So then now I've got the spreadsheet of all the attendees of this event that my executive is attending, and now I can kind of manipulate it easily, the data how I want, and be able to say, "Hey, here's who is going to be at this event." I've sort ordered the people by priority, and I even fed it back into Claude and said, "Hey, who would you recommend are the most important people to talk to, right? The most important people that could be a business partnership, could be an investor, et cetera." And so Claude did a bunch of research and made suggestions on that as well. So taking a simple PDF agenda for an event and turning it into manipulatable data and research really, really quickly was it was a small thing in a way, but the amount of time it took for it to do that versus how much time it would have taken me to do that manually was just a huge, huge difference. And then this kind of the next level would be I have we use Google at our company, so I have a Google Apps script that Claude wrote for me that basically anytime someone schedules an investor call or a potential investor call with my executive, it goes in and it changes the color of that event to the color that we use for investor calls, right? It's just a simple script that Claude put together, but it saves me from having to manually change the color of those events to the color that we use for investors. Ongoing, I don't have to worry about it. Once it's booked, it gets changed. And then that's kind of the next level. And then there's other, building apps, and I built prototypes for our product team and going on and on. So I love the examples. I love just starting small, and just anytime you have data that you need to do something with, then, I've actually, what's funny is I've had my executive or my executive spouse say, "Hey, can you look up flight options for these dates, for these cities, et cetera?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll just basically copy what they're asking me into Gemini or into Claude and just have the conversation that they're having with me with the AI to kind
Yes.
of quickly gather that info, if that makes sense." So
Yeah,
anyway.
for sure. I think that first example in that same vein, when I was supporting our chief marketing officer, she was, attending some summit, and there was no way for me to grab all of the events she was attending from the website into the calendar.
Hmm.
So all I did was copy it and then had it auto create all the events in her calendar.
Yep.
So it's super simple. Yeah. It's the little things, Jeremy, make you feel
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
accomplished.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Beth, for being on the show. This is episode 384. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/384. Again, leaderassistant.com/384. Yeah, do you have any final thoughts? And of course, let us know. I'll put all the links in the show notes, but let us know the best place to reach out and find out more about what you're up to.
Yeah, final thoughts. I would say being an executive assistant, you have domain expertise. You know the nitty-gritty of every step of every task. You know where the friction is in the workflows with your teams and your executives. Jeremy, we just talked through some of what those are. And you know all the things that can help them. And I would say executive assistants are proactive people by nature. It's really hard to be successful as an executive assistant and be reactive. So if you're listening to this, I know you're probably one of those proactive executive assistants. And I guess my final thought is there's no barriers to getting started or limits to what's possible once you get started with AI. It really is like having magic. And I'm happy to share that magic with you and help you get started. And you can check me out on vibecodingforeas.com. There you can find resources. I have some practical guides on using AI, things like even how to teach your executive how to use AI if they haven't started yet. Here I have also recordings of our past working sessions. So some of these like getting in the pool of AI, like these entry level things, you can find the step-by-step working session recordings for those if you're interested.
Perfect. That sounds great. And again, leaderassistant.com/384 to get all that info and connect with Beth. And yeah, thanks again for being on the show. Appreciate you putting all this energy and effort into helping the EAs of the world embrace AI and vibe coding.
Likewise, thanks so much for having me, Jeremy. It was fun.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.
The Leader Assistant Academy is an AI-powered, on-demand professional development resource. It's for growth-minded executive assistants and administrative professionals just like you. When you enroll in the Academy, you get access to the Leader Assistant course plus streaming access to the audiobook. The course includes video lessons for each chapter of the Leader Assistant book, as well as the entirety of the Leader Assistant workbook study and discussion guide. Additionally, you get access to my exclusive Academy newsletter where I share thoughts on the state of the administrative profession, behind the scenes of my business, and sneak peeks at upcoming projects. Your enrollment also includes a one-on-one 25-minute coaching session with yours truly. But my favorite part of the Academy is the AI agent, which I've named ACE. ACE is the only AI agent on Earth trained on the Leader Assistant book, workbook, course, and Academy newsletter. So if you need guidance at 2 a.m. on a Thursday because you have a big meeting coming up with your executive and you want to ask for help, you can log on to the Academy, interact with ACE, and this AI agent will help you along your journey, guiding you to specific resources that are actually helpful in that moment. To find out more and enroll in the Leader Assistant Academy, visit leaderassistant.com/academy.